we've got this image here. We're going to work on it. There's a lot of things wrong with it. First and foremost, I'm not going to use a pen tablet for this one at all. This is all entirely done on mouse. That's number one. Number two, a little bit of history about the selection tool. Selection tools were created originally to allow you to directly affect part of an image. Back before you could do things through masks and other sorts of adjustment layers, you had to manually adjust the image. So you'd have to make copies after copy after copy of these images instead of having clear empty layers, which would take up a lot of memory and would make operating nearly impossible past 5 or 6 layers. So this is how you'd do it. You'd duplicate the layer, which is Control J, and then you'd select the area that you wanted to work on, and away you'd go. And there wasn't really a way to hide it. Since then, that was back in the 90s that these tools were developed. You've got to remember that a lot of that stuck around. Selections is one of the few tools, selection and the brush tool, which haven't changed that much over the course of Photoshop as far as how they originally work. But what we can do now, instead of repeatedly copying the layer to do new things to it, we can create a new layer and work on the new layers. So you'd think the selection tool wouldn't be quite as useful, but still massively useful. And I'll show you why. Is because when we get into masking, which is sort of the last bit of this course and leads into what the second beginner course is all about, which will be just masking and effects. This is more about how to get your image right, and this will allow you to do regional adjustments or area adjustments or local adjustments, whatever you want to call them. I tend to call them local adjustments, and global adjustments obviously are what we worked on previously. All right, so first thing, your selection tools are generally over the side here. The first one is your marquee tool. I won't call it the rectangular marquee tool because if you click and hold, you'll come up with different options that'll give you a whole different bunch of selection abilities. So your rectangle, your elliptical, single row or single column. And to maintain the size as you create them, you hold down the shift key. So if I get that, I can create an ellipse any size. However, if I hold down the shift key, it'll create a perfect circle. Righto. Same thing goes for rectangular tool. You can create a big rectangle. If you hold down the shift key when you're starting a new one, you can create a perfect square. Now, to add to those, and this works with all of your selection tools, if you wanted to make this selection larger but go in a different direction, you can hold the shift key down, then click and drag. Okay, and you can join them together. And to take away, you hold down the Alt key. Okay, so that's negative to it. All right, to remove them all together, it's Control D for deselect. Next one we look at will be the lasso tool. The lasso tool will generally look like this. Um, Click and hold, and you can get the magnetic lasso tool, which I don't use ever. I find it to be quite useless. The polygonal or polygonal lasso tool and the lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool is the best one for working on an image without a pen tablet. All right. I tend to not use the lasso tool as much as I'll use this. The reason is you can create quite large polygons very quickly, or if you wanted to create something rounded, you can click in small amounts and you get quite a rounded area. And once we look at feathering, you can turn that into a pretty good soft edged shape. Now, the next tool, which I find the most useful tool, and this is one that you guys need to have a bit of a play around with, is the quick selection tool. Magic Wand tool used to be the only one that you could do for selecting colors. And I'll just select the bottom layer again because we need color to select. And that selects a range of colors. And if you hold shift, you can click around and do a selection. Not bad to make a quick selection of a large area. All right. So not ideal. As you can see, if I wanted to select between these two lines and I hit shift over here it still manages to select all that area, and we don't want that. So what Photoshop did is in Photoshop CS3, they introduced the quick selection tool. The quick selection tool, you can make your brush larger with your right and left square bracket keys, which are just below your backspace above enter. With the quick selection tool, you can slowly select the areas that you want. Now you can see that's overlapping there. If you hold down Alt and you go along it, you can refine that edge quite well to the black line. So as you add and take, it comes to the conclusion by creating an algorithm of what you do and what you don't want to select, and it selects it based on color and tone. Okay, so that's just a bit of a push and pull effect. This is just awesome. This is the best tool for selection in my opinion, particularly when it comes to photography. It's a great way to select color ranges and a great way to do it locally instead of doing a whole area one. So you'll find that I use this tool quite a bit. Now for this image, it's not going to be helpful in any way, shape or form. Once we have a selection, what we can do is let's get rid of some jaggy edges. Let's say I wanted to do some sort of funny um, neutral density filter on it. Okay, now that's going to be quite sharp and jaggy. So how I'll illustrate that is I'm going to create a curve layer and I'm going to change its blending mode. Now that selection, if you notice down here, it's created a mask. Okay, and we can view that mask by alt clicking. So the alt clicking will show you where the mask is. Anything that's black won't show through. So that's covered that whole bottom area. Anything in white will show through. I'll demonstrate. If we change the blending mode to multiply, that will make that area darker. Now you see how jagged that is. And we can change that. If you look at the adjustments panel here, your adjustments tab, there should be masks right next to it. If you can't see that, go to Window, Masks. All right. So this will show you a whole bunch of tools. The main one is feather. And what we do with that is if we bring that right over to the edge, look at that. That's gone completely, but it's maintained a really cool darkening effect. Look at how much that, you know, uh, it sort of consolidates it and brings our focal point down further, and doesn't let us get caught up the top there by reducing the contrast. Now, as I release it back, you can play with that slider until, you get the effect that you want. And that'll go all the way up to 250 pixels, I think. So I want it about there. Let's say that gives you kind of a cool effect. But as you can see, something so silly and so horrible looking can turn into a quite nice randomized effect. And that's what your eye wants to see. It doesn't want to see too many repeated patterns. It wants to see large patterns repeated. But in the sky, that adds a touch of drama without having to do too much. So you can see the power. So what I'll do now is I'm going to pause this video and we're going to run through how I would get rid of the telegraph lines that I don't want, which is the bottom two. I actually want these in here. I think they add a good degree to it, but we'll see how it goes. We might even take them out just to see what it looks like with and without. So I'm going to get rid of these two power lines and I'm going to sharpen this up down here and make it a bit whiter so you can see a bit better that it's not badly adjusted. So we're going to adjust different areas instead of just adjusting the whole. All right, I'll do that in the next video. If there's anything that you're missing, like Camera Raw, you can find it on the YouTube channel. Just go and follow the links down below, and that'll take you to the Camera Raw, which is the part before Photoshop. So if you're a bit confused how I got this image into Photoshop, go and check that out. And don't forget to subscribe. Every subscribe I get means that I can do more vids. Cheers, guys.